Right, let's talk Celtic, and what a night it was. The boys kept their preseason rolling with a hard-fought but deserved 2-1 win over Cork City, lifting the inaugural Cork Super Cup in the process. A trophy's a trophy, right? Even if it's friendly silverware, it sets the tone. And there's chat that this could be the start of a wee preseason treble, depending how the rest of these matches go. But before we start dreaming too big, let's unpack everything that went down. The match, the standouts, the surprise moments, and of course the avalanche of Celtic news that's been dropping daily like clockwork. You know the drill. When the hoops are back, the headlines never stop. Now the starting 11 was an interesting mix. Some experienced heads, a few new faces, and a couple lads from the B team getting a proper run out. Between the sticks, we had Vanalo back in goal, and across the back, 4 Kobe Donovan slotted in at right back and ended up bagging the winner, which we'll get to. In the center, it was Dane Murray and Austin Trusty holding things down while Hayato Inamura made his debut at left back. That's a name we'll be talking about a lot more, by the way. Midfield trio was Callum McGregor, steady as always, alongside Luke McCowan and Ari Ingles. Up top, James Forrest took his usual spot on the right. Ben Summers was out on the left. A bit of a change for him, and Johnny Kenny led the line. First half pretty tidy actually. Celtic had the Lions. Share of possession dictated the tempo, but you could tell it's still early doors in terms of sharpness. Quite a few passes were just a bit overcooked. Balls running away from players, or touches not quite sticking. Part of that might have been down to the pitch. A few lads were clearly getting caught up on it, but also just classic preseason. Rustiness. These things happen. Still, for a friendly in Cork, there was a decent buzz, and the crowd certainly appreciated seeing the hoops up close. Now, let's talk about Inamura. The Japanese defender might have come in under the radar, but he looked absolutely at home in that backline. Playing out of position at left back, he still managed to put in a composed, confident shift. And remember, he's joining us midway through his own domestic season back in Japan, so his fitness is sharp. He had a proper go, winning headers stepping. Into tackles covering for teammates, including a great recovery when Trusty fluffed a clearance near the byline. Not to mention that wicked cross he whipped in that flashed right across goal. Only needed a wee touch and it was in. On another night, that's a nailed-on assist. What impressed most, though, was his composure on the ball. You know those players who don't overthink it. Just receive and move it on, always positive, always looking forward. That's Inamura. First couple of touches, bang. One touch passes into McGregor, into Engels, no hesitation. None of that nervy first game energy you sometimes get with new signings. He was calm, direct, and clearly keen to make a good impression. There was a moment where he pulled a shot wide, and he gave himself that little shake of the head. That we should have done better reaction that tells you he's demanding more from himself already. And Brendan Rodgers took notice too. After the match, he basically said, look, the plan was to see how he does in preseason and then maybe loan him out. But added that based on what he's shown so far in training and that performance in Cork, there's a real chance he sticks around. Rodgers used words like smooth and forward thinking when describing him, and when the gaffer says a player surprised him, in a good way you take note. It's early days, but there's a growing feeling that Inamura might have a bigger role to play this season than anyone initially thought. Elsewhere in the first half, Luke McCowan's goal was a belter. Just a clean, well-taken strike that showed he's ready to step up. And then there's Ben Summers. Look, he did all right. Had a bit of spark out wide. Even flicked one on for James Forrest. That nearly turned into something. But truth be told, it's hard to see where he fits in long term. There was a window a couple years back where it felt like he might break through, but that moment's kind of passed him by. Still, for this match, at least he showed he's got something to offer. And fair play to him. Second half now is all about the youth. A whole new 11 came on so many names that even the graphics team couldn't keep up. Ross Doohan took over in goal, and at the back we had Ben McPherson at right back with Stephen Welsh captaining the side. H. Mitchell Robertson joined. Him in central defense, and Adam Montgomery came in on the left. Midfield trio was Sean Mardell, Kyle Ure, and Francis Turley, with Turley pushing slightly further forward. The wings were covered by Thomas Hatton and Mitchell Frame, and leading the line for his debut was Callum Osborne. The tempo dropped a bit naturally. It's a younger squad still finding their rhythm. Rodgers said as much, post-match admitting the second half lacked a bit of control in possession. But even so, the boys battled, pressed, and crucially found a way to win. That, in these early games, can be just as important as playing silky football. Let's spotlight a few of those lads. Callum Osborne, new face, new club, and showed some flashes. Movement was decent, got himself into some good areas. Of course, the Polish isn't quite there yet. It's his first run out, but you could see the instincts are there. Thomas Haddon on the right started slow, but grew into the half being having more effective touches as the game wore on and created a few promising moments. Definitely one to keep tabs on. Now Kyle Ure, that lad's got a cultured left peg. He was threading passes through the lines trying to open Cork up. Played one brilliant ball that almost set someone through. Might have been Montgomery or Frame. And even though it didn't come off, the intent was there. He's only 19, but if we're talking about depth for the midfield especially, when Callum McGregor needs a rest in the domestic calendar, Ure might be a solid shout for some cameos. Not saying he's Champions League ready or anything, but give him a cup game or two, see what he's made of. Francis Turley, too, did a bit of the dirty work in the middle, not flashy, but disciplined. Sean Mardell, on the other hand, didn't quite hit the levels we saw from him last year. But that's the curse of expectations. When a player impresses early, we start demanding more, and sometimes it just doesn't click on the night. Now Stephen Welsh. Tough night for the lad. There was a miscommunication with Duhan that led to the Cork goal. Just a lapse, really? And earlier in the game, another mix-up nearly cost him again. But worse than the error was the injury. His shoulder popped out. Again. Fourth time, apparently. He tried to soldier and played maybe another 20 minutes, but eventually had to come off clearly in pain and looking devastated. Rogers said, post-match, that surgery is on the cards now, and you'd imagine that means 6 months minimum, maybe more. If it's a full reconstruction, we're talking close to a year. That's brutal. For a guy who already seemed like he was on the way out, this could completely derail any potential move and leave him sidelined in the final stages of his contract. Just rotten luck, especially in a preseason match. You never want to see that happen to anyone, let alone someone who's such a big Celtic man. One player who didn't feature but deserves a mention, Jude Bonner. The reason he was absent is that he's off on loan to join Scott Brown's United for the season. A good move by all accounts. Regular football, new challenges, and a chance to develop under someone who knows the Celtic way inside out. Hopefully he kicks on and comes back stronger. And we need to talk about what this trip to Ireland meant. You could feel it, not just from the fans in the stadium, but from supporters tuning in all over the world. Celtic is more than just Glasgow. It's global. And these moments where the team travels and plays in places like Cork, they reinforce that connection. It's the same feeling we saw when the team went to Australia for those Sydney games under Ange. Fans coming from all corners just to be part of something. You meet supporters from all over. Perth, Melbourne, even Southeast Asia. And you're reminded that no matter where you go, there's always someone in the hoops. That presence, that togetherness, it matters. It builds the culture and keeps the club alive in every corner of the world. So for the Irish fans, this was special. For everyone watching in the middle of the night, whether you were up at 3 a.m. like some of the diehards in Australia or catching the replay later in the morning, it's these kinds of games that remind you why you love this club. And it's just the beginning. The next few games are going to be real tests, but we're getting there, slowly but surely. The Celtic journey rolls on, and the next phase of preseason is already shaping up to be proper interesting. After the win in Cork, the team didn't even head back to Glasgow. Straight from Ireland, they've jetted off to Portugal, where the training intensifies and the level of opposition ramps up. Saturday's match will be a behind-closed-doors fixture at the Benfica campus against Estrela da Amadora. Now, it might not be the flashiest name in Portuguese football, but it's exactly the kind of environment Rogers wants. Intense heat, tough conditions, and a proper European test. And speaking of that heat, it's been absolutely roasting over there. Word is, even by Aussie standards, Portugal's been boiling. 46, 47 degrees at points earlier in the week. You can't imagine the sports science team's got the lads drowning in sunscreen and electrolytes just to keep them ticking. The match is scheduled for 11 in the morning, which should help avoid the worst of the midday sun. But still, you don't envy the boys having to run themselves into the ground in that sort of climate. Professional footballers, or not that kind, of heat is brutal. Now, in terms of who we'll see in that match, Rogers gave a few hints. He said, we're likely to see the majority of the big names get in their first minutes of preseason on Saturday. The internationals have all trickled back into training this week, and the idea is to give each of them at least a full week of preparation before chucking them into a match situation. So lads like Alistair Johnston and Lewis Palmer, who've only just reported back, probably won't be involved just yet. Same goes for Paulo Bernardo. No sign of him back in the fold yet either, but expected to link up with the squad in Portugal. The match itself won't be streamed or shown being closed door and all that, but it's still a key marker. This is when preseason goes up a gear. The youth experiments start to ease off a bit, the rotations become more tactical, and you begin to see Rodgers shaping what his first choice 11 might look like come the league opener. After Estrela, it's Sporting Lisbon, then Newcastle United, then Ajax. That's 3 Champions League level opponents in a row, and it'll show us just where this squad really stands. One of the biggest talking points coming out of Cork, besides Inamura's performance, was of course the latest injury situation, particularly with Cameron Carter-Vickers. But Rodgers actually delivered a bit of good news there. He said that Cam is progressing well, already doing individual work with the conditioners, and could be ready to play either just before or just after the Newcastle match. That's roughly 10 days away, and for a player who's been such a rock at the back, that's a massive boost. Getting him fit and firing before the season kicks off will be huge. And while we're on the topic of fitness, there were also updates on Rio Hatate. Now he's a player the fans have been dying to see back at full flow. And according to Rodgers, he's looking strong. No lingering issues from that injury, training hard, and by all accounts ready to go. You'd expect he'll get some minutes. In Portugal too. Maybe not a full half right away, but enough to get his legs moving again in a proper match setting. Rodgers was also full of praise for Benjamin Negron, the young midfielder who's just come in. Described him as forward-thinking, mobile, and someone who's made a real impression since day one. We've not seen him in a match. Yet, but clearly the staff are excited. And again, these early camps are crucial. If you show enough now, you can leapfrog a few players in the pecking order. It's happened before. And with Rodgers, we know he's not afraid to back a youngster who's impressing in training. That's why this Portugal leg of preseason is so vital. It's the perfect blend of top-level opposition, intense climate, and just enough pressure to separate the passengers from the players who are truly ready. And with Tierney back in the mix, that's another layer. The fans are obviously buzzing to have him home, and while the club is taking it slow with him, managing his minutes due to his injury history, the plan is clearly to integrate him steadily but surely. Seeing him in training again, throwing himself into drills, smiling with the lads, you can feel how much it means to him and to everyone else. The journey back to Celtic Park is being taken step-by-step announcement photo in the shirt-first session, and now soon that first match back in the hoops. Each moment has its own little buzz. Now a bit of transfer movement to cover. Gustav Lagerbielke has officially left the club, completing a permanent move to Bragon, Sweden. Reports suggest a fee around £2 million with some performance-based add-ons and a 10% selling clause in case of a future transfer. He's already put out a farewell message to the fans, thanking the club, his teammates, and the supporters for the last 2 years. He never really settled in, it's fair to say, but always conducted himself with professionalism. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. That's football. No drama, no bad blood. Just a clean break and best of luck to him. And as we look forward to the Sporting Lisbon match, things really start to heat up, not just because of the Portuguese sun. Sporting's a serious side Champions League caliber, and that's the kind of test this squad needs. If Rodgers wants to fine-tune his system, this is the type of opposition that'll expose any weaknesses and show him exactly where the work needs to be done. The match against Newcastle that follows will be similar. There's something poetic about testing ourselves against top European sides in preseason. No trophies on the line, but the experience is priceless. One small note, the team is staying in Lisbon for the duration, and there's been a wee bit of chat about whether Jota might be in the area given his Benfica roots. No concrete info, just speculation, but it does make you wonder if he's having a quiet word in the ear of any of his old mates who might fancy a move north. You never know that Benfica pipelines worked for us before. At the end of the day, these matches and these training camps are about more than just tactics and fitness. They're about building chemistry, setting standards, and giving the squad a shared experience to bond over. That time in the hotel, in the gym, on the pitch, it builds something. And for the fans, even if we can't watch every minute, just knowing The team's putting in the work, sweating under the sun, pushing themselves to be better. That matters, so we move forward. Next up is Estrela da Amadora, then the real tests begin. Sporting Newcastle Ajax. And not long after that, the league gets going. 3.5 weeks away, roughly. The countdown's on. The pieces are starting to come together. The new lads are settling and the returnees are getting sharper, and the manager's vision is beginning to take shape. If this summer's anything to go by, it's going to be a wild season. Let's see what happens. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. There's a quiet stir in the East End of Glasgow, and it's growing louder with each passing day. Word on the street is that former Manchester United prodigy James Wilson has penned a deal with Celtic and could be set to reignite his career. Under the lights of paradise, a name once tipped for greatness, Wilson burst onto the scene at Old Trafford with a debut brace that had fans dreaming of the next big English striker. But injuries and inconsistency saw the once bright star fade into the background, meandering through loan spells and lower league football with the weight of unfulfilled potential on his shoulders. Now, if the whispers are true, the Hoops might just be offering him a lifeline and a stage to write a new chapter. Sources close to Parkhead suggest Wilson has already agreed terms and could be unveiled in the coming days. While the club has remained tight-lipped, murmurs within Lennoxtown hint that the 28-year-old striker has been spotted training in the shadows, quietly working his way to full fitness. It's a move that has divided opinion among the Celtic faithful. Some see a low-risk gamble with potential upside, a hungry player with a point to prove, eager to find redemption in the green and white. Others question whether he still has the sharpness to compete at the top level in Scotland, especially in a side aiming for another domestic clean sweep and a better showing in Europe. But football has a funny way of rewriting stories. Just look at what the Hoops have done with players like Joe Hart or even Liam Scales. Both written off elsewhere, yet revitalized in the Celtic system. Could Wilson be the next name added to that list? Nothing is official yet, but don't be surprised if James Wilson steps onto the Parkhead turf soon, donning the famous number 9 shirt. After all, Paradise has a habit of breathing life into forgotten talents. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.